My name is Margaret. I'm 67 years old, and on the day my husband's will was read, my sons carved up $25 million like it was a holiday feast. Robert took the real estate holdings. Paul claimed the tech startups, the vacation homes, the yacht, everything. Absolutely everything. And me? After 42 years of marriage, after giving my entire life to our family, I was handed a faded, crumpled envelope that looked like it had been forgotten in a drawer. My daughter-in-law, Karen, smirked and said, "Maybe it's got a grocery list for you, Margaret." Robert didn't even glance my way. Paul rolled his eyes as if I were an inconvenience they'd rather forget. Humiliated, I left that lawyer's office feeling like my life meant nothing. But what they didn't know was that when I opened that envelope alone in my quiet house, I'd uncover something that would turn everything upside down. If you've ever felt betrayed or invisible, if you've ever wondered what it's like to find strength you didn't know you had, please subscribe to the channel and stay with me for this story. I promise it's one you won't forget. Henry had passed just 10 days earlier. Lung cancer stole him in 8 brutal months. For 42 years, he was my rock, my partner, the man who turned a small hardware store into a multi-million-dollar empire. I was there through every late night, every risky loan, every expansion. When he worked weekends, I raised our boys alone. When he needed collateral for his first big deal, I sold my grandmother's sapphire ring without hesitation. I never asked for praise. I just loved him and believed he'd always have my back. How wrong I was. The will reading was held at the office of Patricia Wells, our family attorney. I wore my navy dress, the one Henry loved, thinking it would be a simple formality. After 4 decades together, surely he'd left me secure. My sons would get the businesses, but I'd have enough to live comfortably. Patricia's voice was flat as she read, "To my son Robert, I leave the real estate portfolio, valued at $10 million. Robert grinned like he'd won a prize. To my son Paul, I leave the tech startups, generating $7 million annually. Paul leaned back, smug. The vacation homes in Aspen and Miami, the yacht, the investment accounts, $25 million split neatly between them. I sat there, invisible, waiting for my name. Finally, Patricia paused, adjusted her glasses, and said, "To Mrs. Margaret Sullivan, I leave this personal envelope." She slid a worn, yellowed envelope across the table. My hands shook as I took it. Robert and Paul exchanged smirks. Karen, Paul's wife, let out a sharp laugh. "Maybe it's got a grocery list for you, Margaret." The room felt suffocating. Patricia moved on, discussing transferred protocols with my sons as if I weren't there. I stood, tucked the envelope into my purse, and walked out. No one said a word. No one offered a ride. I was a ghost. That night, alone in our 2 big house, I sat at the kitchen table where Henry and I used to share coffee. The silence was deafening. The envelope sat in front of me, mocking my 42 years of devotion. I tore it open, expecting a sentimental note, something meaningless. Instead, I found a single sheet of paper in Henry's careful handwriting. For the woman who gave me everything, account number 4729KL, First Global Bank, Zurich. The truth is yours alone. They don't deserve it. My breath caught. A Swiss bank account? Henry had never mentioned foreign accounts. What truth? What had he hidden? I barely slept, clutching that paper. The next morning, I called the bank. My voice trembled as I gave the account number. After a long pause, the operator said, "Mrs. Sullivan, the balance is $80 million USD. The phone slipped from my hand. $80 million. More than triple what my sons had inherited. Then the operator added, "There's also a safe deposit box with instructions for delivery. Shall I arrange it?" I whispered yes, my mind racing. What had Henry done? Why hide this? The safe arrived the next day, a sleek metal box with a combination. Our anniversary, April 22nd, 1979. I locked the doors, drew the blinds, and opened it. Inside were documents, photos, a USB drive, and a letter addressed to me. "My dearest Margaret, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and our sons have shown their true selves. I know they hurt you at the will reading. I know they dismissed you, but I needed them to reveal who they are before you learned the truth." My heart pounded. Over the last 3 years, I uncovered things about Robert and Paul that shattered me. The $80 million is just the start. There's more, but first you must know what they've done. Robert, the letter said, had been embezzling from the real estate firm for 2 years, funneling $1.5 million to offshore accounts to fund a secret luxury condo in Dubai. Karen was complicit, using the money for designer clothes and private jets. Documents in the box, bank statements, emails proved it. Paul was worse. He'd been sabotaging the tech startups, selling proprietary software to competitors for $2 million in kickbacks. Photos showed him at clandestine meetings with rival CEOs. But the worst part? They'd planned to erase me. Henry had overheard them one night, weakened by chemo but still sharp. Robert had said, "Once Dad's gone, we'll put her in a home. She's too old to manage money." Karen agreed, "A doctor can sign off on dementia. It'll be easy." Paul added, "We'll sell the house and split it. She won't even notice." My hands shook as tears blurred the words. My sons, my own children, wanted to lock me away to steal what little they thought I had? Henry's letter continued. "I moved my real fortune, $150 million total, to accounts only you can access. The will was a test. They failed. You decide their fate." The safe held everything: bank records, photos of Robert's Dubai condo, Paul's meetings, and a recording of their plan to commit me. I listened to Karen's voice. "She's so clueless. We'll have her in Shady Pines by next month." Robert laughed. "Mom's always been a pushover." I felt sick, betrayed, but something else stirred: anger. Henry had given me power, and I wasn't going to waste it. I acted fast. I transferred $5 million to a local account for immediate needs. I hired a private investigator to verify Henry's findings and a security team to monitor my house. Then I called Patricia Wells, pretending to be confused. "Patricia, I don't understand the envelope. Is it really all I got?" She hesitated, then said, "That's what the will specified, Margaret. I'm sorry." Her tone was off. I suspected she knew more than she let on. A week later, Robert called, his voice dripping with fake concern. "Mom, we're worried about you. That big house isn't safe for a woman your age." There it was, the first move. "I'm fine," I said, keeping my voice soft. "Just grieving." He pressed. "We found a great place, Green Valley Senior Care. They've got activities, medical staff, everything you need." My stomach churned. Green Valley was a notorious facility, known for neglect. Online reviews mentioned understaffing and ignored complaints. I played along. "Maybe I'll think about it." Paul called the next day, echoing Robert. "Mom, we need to talk about the house. Maintenance is expensive, taxes, repairs. It's too much for you. Selling it would give you peace of mind." Peace of mind, as if they cared. "I'm not ready," I said. "It's too soon after your father." He pushed. "The market's hot now. Waiting could cost you." Cost them, he meant. Their pressure escalated. Karen showed up unannounced with Green Valley brochures. "Look, Margaret, they've got bingo, art classes. You'll love it." I smiled, hiding my disgust. "I'll look them over." By the third week, they were relentless. Robert brought a financial advisor to help me manage my limited resources. The man, Dr. Gordon, carried a briefcase and a smug grin. "Mrs. Sullivan, we need to assess your mental clarity for financial decisions," he said, pulling out forms. I recognized them. Commitment papers, just like Henry's evidence showed. "Can you tell me today's date?" "Wednesday, November 5th, 2025. "And your address?" 821 Willow Lane, the home I've lived in for 30 years. He scribbled notes. "How do you feel about your sons inheriting the businesses?" I looked at Robert, who was watching me like a hawk. "I feel like I've learned who my family really is." Dr. Gordon nodded, whispering to Robert, "Mrs. Sullivan, I recommend a short stay at Green Valley for observation. It's for your safety." Robert chimed in, "Mom, it's not optional. The doctor knows best." Karen added, "Don't make this hard, Margaret. We're just trying to help." Her voice was sharp, like a knife. I stood, clutching my purse where I'd hidden Henry's photos. Help? Like planning to sell my house while I'm locked away? Like embezzling $1.5 million, Robert? Or selling software to competitors, Paul? Their faces froze. Dr. Gordon shifted uncomfortably. "What are you talking about?" Robert snapped. I pulled out a photo of him signing papers in Dubai, dated March 14th, 2024.
This, and the $2 million Paul made betraying Dad's company. Karen laughed nervously. You're delusional, Margaret. I held up the USB drive. Delusional? Henry recorded you. She's so clueless. Shady Pines by next month. Sound familiar? Dr. Gordon bolted for the door. This is a misunderstanding. I blocked him. How much did they pay you, doctor? I've got photos of you taking their cash. $3,000, right? He stammered, pale. Robert lunged for the USB. I stepped back, pulling out my phone and hitting record. I'm documenting this. My sons and their fake doctor are trying to commit me against my will. Karen screamed, "You're insane!" But her eyes betrayed panic. I dialed my investigator, Tom Reed. Tom, they're here. Send the police. Robert's bravado crumbled. Mom, what are you doing? What I should have done weeks ago, I said. Henry left me $150 million and evidence of your crimes. You thought I was helpless. You were wrong. The police arrived within 10 minutes. Tom at his side. Mrs. Sullivan, we got your call. An officer said. Dr. Gordon tried to slip away, but Tom stopped him. Not so fast. We've got bank records tying you to the Sullivans. He confessed instantly. They paid me $3,000 to sign the papers. I didn't know it was a crime. Robert and Karen were questioned, but not arrested, yet. Paul, who'd been silent, muttered, "This is a mistake." I looked at him. The mistake was thinking you could erase me. That night, I sat in Henry's old armchair, the one where we'd watched sunsets. I didn't cry. I felt alive, powerful. Henry hadn't just left me money, he'd left me a mission. I called Robert and Paul the next morning. You have 48 hours to return every stolen dollar. Cancel the Green Valley contract. Confess your crimes or I release everything. Photos, recordings, bank statements, to the press and the DA. Paul tried to argue. Dad gave us the businesses. You can't touch them. I laughed cold. Henry gave me control of the holding company. I own 51% of everything. Want to test me? They showed up the next day defeated. Robert looked haggard, Paul broken. Mom, we messed up. The money, the plans, it spiraled. Paul nodded. We were desperate. Robert's debts, my deals. We thought we had no choice. No choice? I snapped. You chose to betray me, to betray Dad. You planned to lock me away while I mourned him. They flinched. What do you want? Paul asked. I leaned forward. Robert, you'll repay the $1.5 million from your inheritance. You'll work as a property manager, minimum wage, until it's paid. Paul, you're entering a tech ethics program. You'll learn what integrity means, or you'll lose everything. Karen, silent until now, whispered, You can't do this. I turned to her, pulling out a photo of her at a Dubai boutique, time-stamped with a $10,000 purchase. A fair? Robert's voice cracked. I nodded. She's been seeing him for a year, Robert. Check the photos. Paul handed me the USB. We'll do what you say, Mom. Just don't destroy us. I took it, unflinching. You destroyed yourselves. I'm just holding the mirror.
Karen signed the divorce papers that day, sobbing. Robert didn't look at her. They left my house in silence, the weight of their choices crushing them. I didn't feel triumph, just resolve. Henry had seen this coming. He'd trusted me to handle it, and I would. Over the next month, I took control. I visited the real estate firm, meeting employees who'd worked under Robert's reckless leadership. I'm Margaret Sullivan, I told them. I'm your new CEO. They were skeptical until I outlined my plan. Audits to uncover Robert's fraud, raises for loyal staff, and a new focus on affordable housing. At the tech startups, I fired Paul's corrupt allies and hired ethical developers. The companies thrived under transparency. I used $10 million to start the Henry and Margaret Sullivan Foundation for Invisible Women. It focused on seniors like me, women dismissed by their families, robbed of their agency. Our first shelter opened in 3 months, housing 50 women. One, Linda, 71, had been evicted by her daughter. We gave her a home and legal help to reclaim her savings. Another, Gloria, 69, escaped an abusive son. She now teaches cooking classes at the shelter, her smile brighter than ever. Robert and Paul complied, slowly. Robert worked long hours managing properties, his arrogance fading. Paul enrolled in the ethics program, calling me weekly with updates. "Mom, I'm learning what Dad stood for," he said once. I didn't forgive them yet, but I saw glimmers of change. 6 months later, I stood at the Foundation's gala, wearing a silver dress that felt like armor. The ballroom buzzed with 400 guests, donors, survivors, advocates. A photo of Henry and me from our 10th anniversary hung behind the podium. "Good evening," I began. "A year ago, I was a widow who thought my story was over. I was betrayed by those I loved most, but I learned that betrayal can be a beginning. At 67, I became a CEO, a founder, a woman who refuses to be invisible." The crowd roared. I saw Robert in the back, clapping, his face a mix of pride and shame. "This foundation," I continued, "is for every woman told she's too old to matter. We've helped 300 women reclaim their lives. Women like Susan, 70, whose son stole her pension. She now runs our mentorship program, guiding young entrepreneurs with her decades of wisdom." I paused, meeting Robert's eyes. "And this is for my sons, who are learning that redemption is earned, not given." The applause lasted minutes. Women hugged me, sharing their stories. Robert approached later, hesitant. "Mom, I'm sorry. Not just for the money, but for not seeing you. You're incredible." I nodded. "Prove it, Robert. Not with words, with actions." A year after the will reading, I sit in my garden, the same one my sons wanted to sell. It's lush now, my hands tending it daily. The businesses are stronger than ever. The foundation has 5 shelters, a legal fund, and a national mentorship network. Robert manages properties with humility, earning his team's respect. Paul, now a mentor in the ethics program, helps young coders avoid his mistakes. Karen's gone, her name unspoken. I'm no longer just a mother or wife. I'm Margaret Sullivan, a leader shaping lives. The envelope on my desk, once a symbol of betrayal, now holds thank you notes from women we've saved, photos of shelter openings, articles about our work. It reminds me that pain can birth purpose. If I could tell the Margaret who left that office in tears, I'd say, "This hurt is your awakening. You're not invisible. You're unstoppable." To you listening, I ask, when have you been made to feel small? When did you rise anyway? Share your story in the comments. I want to hear it. And if my journey moved you, subscribe to the channel. There are more stories like mine, and I'd love for you to hear them. Because it's never too late to claim your power, to rewrite your ending, to become who you were always meant to be.